Welcome to Winning with the Burns, a podcast for highly ambitious people who have a burning desire to learn what it takes to win at a high level. Hey guys, thanks for joining us again today. I got a great friend here today that I'm excited for you guys to get to know him. He brings a lot of energy. So if you just drank a caffeinated drink right now, good luck. See, you see what I'm talking about? He brings a lot of energy. So Luke Ayers, thanks for joining us today.
Hey man, I feel honored. Anytime I get to be in places like this, some advice I got 5 years ago is don't be the smartest person in the room. And if your circle is always asking you for advice, change your circle.
That's good advice.
So it's been really.
I'd never had to worry about being the smartest one in the room.
And that's one thing that's helped me. Like when you called me, it was like, hey, schedule this out. Let's come. I was like, oh man, this is awesome. Because I love, because all the times of hanging out in a regular setting, a chill setting, a lake house setting, this is a whole nother setting. So you get different personalities and different things to learn from each other. So I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, introduce yourself to everybody. Let us know, where you grew up.
Sure.
I think you're one of 8 siblings.
Yep, one of 8. So Luke Ayers was born and raised in Noonan, Georgia. If anyone is from around here, people always, because Noonan's a big city. I look at it as a small town, but 150,000 people is not small anymore. I tell people I'm from Barbie Beach, and Barbie Beach is an area in Turin, Georgia, or near Sharpsburg, East Coweta district. That it's kind of like a landmark. Everybody goes that way, headed to the beach on spring break. So even people just driving through, headed to Panama City, you'll see all over social media, Barbie Beach. So I'm from right here in Coweta County. I've been here my entire life. Grew up on a big piece of property with big sibling. 8 of us, taking care of stuff. And then as we all started getting older, everybody kind of spread out a little bit. I was the one who never left. I've had siblings live in different countries and different states and different things, chasing industries or going with a spouse. I'm the last one to never been married and no kids of my own yet. But there are, of course, now I'm the favorite uncle because there are, as of last week, the 23rd niece was brought to the family.
23.
So there's 23 nieces and nephews.
Wow.
Of the 7 children.
You ain't got time to have kids of your own.
I don't have time. But then, of course, my job, I tell people all the time, I have 50 of my own kids, all the time that I have to keep up with and things like that. Yep.
Yeah, so coming in, I think in high school, coming out of high school, you kind of started planting your seeds in the ministry.
Right. So I knew, I hear stories from my grandmother. She was my roommate and best friend. She died last year right after COVID, almost 98 years old.
Love seeing the videos you'd post of her.
She's my rock star. And she would always, we were just, I could tell her everything. One, because she was old and had no judgment. But then the other thing is she would hold on to everything I would tell her, and then out of the blue, she would have some advice. Or I think you should do this with this information. And one of the things I remember when I was younger, she would always say, well, you don't have to do it like everybody else. Because growing up, and it gets me emotional thinking about it. Growing up, I think a lot of people I graduated in 2007. And now it's way worse that people have this comparison game.
Yeah.
And I was playing football, but I'd rather be on a tractor for 8 hours than be in a locker room, right? And I'd rather make a few $100s a day than trade time for money at a restaurant or working for somebody else. And I was struggling with that through high school because I was taking care of these 30 horses and I was doing this thing and cutting grass and landscaping. And the worst thought in my mind was go to college and be stuck there for 4 years and all this stuff. And I'm not anti-education. I'm all about learning. And I just knew I needed to learn different. Yeah. And I wanted to learn different. And coming out of high school, I really felt, a huge calling to work with people and whatever that looked like. I had no idea. So I started doing the college thing, running a couple of my own businesses, and really started to find out who I was personally. And then no one told me that when I was in high school and college. You got to figure out who you are before you can help people figure out who they are. Yeah. And that's what I was in this weird identity crisis, trying to figure out who is Luke Ayers. And I would say this even now, more recent, I got to be okay with who Luke Ayers is. And that was kind of a long journey for me as well.
Yeah. So she instilled in you, you don't have to do it like everybody else.
Right.
Like,
it is my story.
That's
It
right.
is my story, and let God write my story. And then now people push me because my life and my story, we can't fit it into this episode. But man, I write down a lot of my stories because I've been all over the world and dealt with more trauma than most people would in 3 lifetimes. Just worst case scenarios, trauma personally, but then also what I do now for a living. We deal with trauma on a day-to-day basis. So I've realized, and I'm totally okay with my story is my story, and it's going to be different than your story.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
So 16 years out of high school. What that first year out of high school look like? What'd you do?
So, man, first year out of high school, I ever thought I was crazy because when I was in high school, it was kind of the first time where you could do some college courses while in high school. And all I heard was this: if you work a little extra, you can finish school early. I didn't care what it meant. That's all I heard.
Sign me up.
Sign me up for it. So I graduated at age 17, and I just started working. I was running a little landscape business and started doing, I guess now you could call it consulting. I was so passionate about seeing people become successful. I just started literally like being a referral guy. I was known as, I don't know, call Luke Ayers. I don't have someone for this, call Luke Ayers. So then I just started kind of branding myself as the guy who knew a guy. And what I was trying to set myself up for was to help as many people as possible while not having to go get a job. And I know it almost sounds like, all right, go back to your friends and family. I would say stuff like that. They're like, oh, you're just lazy. I was like, I don't want to get a job and I don't want to go to college. I'm like, well, what are you going to do? I don't know, but I'm not going to get a job. I'm not going to go to college. And then I learned that I didn't know anything about business. And I was just burning a lot of bridges.
You're 18 years old. How are you going to know anything about business?
I did not know anything, and I had to fail. I had to fail, and I wasn't feeling it then. I can say it boldly now, is I tried to set people up where they got to fail a few times. Otherwise, they'll never learn. And I failed pretty miserably at a couple of things personally in business. So I started going to work for Chick-fil-A. And I learned everything I knew about business, customer service, how to show up on time. You think about that, like I was a punk 17-year-old who thought I was the stuff, and like then your boss says, hey, if you show up late one more time, I don't care if your cat died or you have a flat tire, you won't have a job anymore. And this was my small group leader at church. But he was also my boss.
Yeah.
And he was the first one that taught me, you got to separate excuses in business. You got to separate your feelings in business.
Yeah.
And he would tell me this. He would point to this, single 60-year-old lady who never had a job in her life, who's there every day on time, but her husband passed away of cancer and she has to work now. Her first job she got at 59 years old. He goes, she think she's going to show up when she hits a flat tire? Well, yeah, she's not going to call. But a 17-year-old punk kid, I had to learn these lessons, doing this. And I will say this, I had 8 siblings. My dad taught me a lot, and now we work together, and he's my hero. But life was busy, and I didn't learn a lot from my family, my parents back then. And I'll say this, I learned a lot of what I didn't want. There was a lot going on in my family. I was like, okay, I'm going to write that down in my mind. Yeah. I don't want to be like that. I don't want to have the same struggles as some of my family did, because you grow up in a small family, we're really poor, but we never went without what we needed. So the first year and then second year after high school, because of Chick-fil-A, I made a connection and I started going to a small college here in Georgia. Started taking online at West Georgia, and I could keep making money. And that was kind of another pride thing as a young 18-year-old, is I was making the same amount of money and I was ahead in school than all my friends who used to make fun of me, who were like, oh, you're staying home, we're going to college. I ended up doing better in school, making the dean's list. And then I realized the term, and you know this, Nick, busy people get stuff done.
Yeah.
It's not about being busy, but it's about being productive. So that's kind of where I went in that direction.
That's good.
So Chick-fil-A gave you a great foundation.
Oh, huge.
Well, you learned at home what you didn't want.
Right.
And then at Chick-fil-A, they gave you structure, discipline, hard work, respect.
And then I would even say, looking back, I'm like, how did they trust me to do these things? I mean, I was 18 years old. And back then, Chick-fil-A, people had to wear ties. I was 18 years old wearing a tie and like managing outside sales. So like every public high school in our county was buying sandwiches, and every school and every party and every business did their catering through us. And I had the van and I was delivering it and all this stuff to them.
They knew what they were doing. They saw a kid with personality.
That's right.
They don't want to get somebody with personality in the kitchen.
Right.
They want them out. And
I'll tell you, I was the best lemon squeezer, the best dishwasher, and the best breader. I had to have a stool because I was 5'4". I had a stool to bread chicken in the kitchen. And then this is a side note I brag on sometimes, I also got Chick-fil-A Cow of the Year award 3 years in a row.
Are you a mascot?
I was a mascot. I was a mascot. And I love it. I love being in that character. And then it led to, fast forward, coming to the end of Chick-fil-A, I loved it so much, I just needed to get out. I felt like still, even doing outside sales, I was still confined to that store because it's a business, right? So I wanted to go broader. So I started doing grand openings all over the country. And then my favorite job with Chick-fil-A was working for the Cathy family, which was working at their farm and hosting Christian events and working with the orphanage. So I was like getting paid by like I had a Chick-fil-A name tag, but I get to work and with the Cathys all the time. And that led to doing football operations, which is the Peach Bowl, the big Chick-fil-A bowl on New Year's Eve. And that's kind of, I transitioned out of that towards my last year of management. And it was awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. So then you leave Chick-fil-A and you start kind of going around, because I remember just a few years ago having lunch with you.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm in discipleship.
Right.
Like I take, young people and I disciple them, because I've always been told leadership is providing a path for people.
Right.
But the mentorship is walking that path with them. And that's something you do every day, is you walk a path with these young men and women that, you do lead.
Yeah, and I would say, over the years and different things, I've kind of switched what I do. But discipleship, I think, has to happen with people who have a faith. They have to have some type of faith in their creator to be discipled, because I think discipleship equals duplication. That's something I coined about 3 or 4 years ago. But mentorship doesn't always duplicate. So I make it very clear when I meet with a young person or a young business entrepreneur or somebody, I'm like, all right, let's figure out, are we doing mentorship or discipleship? Because in discipleship, I want to be able to train someone to duplicate what we're doing and keep it going. I even would say to one guy, I'll say, hey, I discipled you. Are you discipling anybody? And they're like, no, I'm not discipling anybody. I'm like, then I didn't disciple you. I mentored you.
That's right.
Because if it doesn't duplicate, it wasn't real discipleship. And then the mentorship piece is also kind of a easier route for me, because I don't have to walk for years and years and years. But it's also a hard part for me, because when you see people duplicate and be discipled, you get to see the fruit of your labor. Yeah. Does that make sense? So like even me meeting you guys years ago, like we get to see different seasons of life. We get to see struggles. We get to see success. So that's, to me, the fun part of what I do. And then the other side of that is, personally relationships, people who lived in my house, young men and young ladies that I've mentored and discipled. When you get, my dad always said, don't open your heart all the way. You'll get a lot of hurt. The more you open, the more hurt you got.
Amen to that.
Yes.
And I have done, I've done more than 20 funerals of personal students, people under the age of 25.
Wow.
And the youngest boy was 10 years old, who had some mental health problems and took his own life. And so on the traumatic side, when you open your heart to people and people pass away, you have the joy, if they had faith in Jesus, that where they are for eternity. But then you have these families and people that need to be mentored and discipled and shepherded, So I kind of had that role, not by choice, but God kind of opened that up as that has happened. And I even got into counseling myself. That's a selfless plug. Anyone who deals with any human being should at some point have counseling, because I had to figure out over years that it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
But I was kind of taught on accident that like you got to have it all together. Whether you're a dad or whether you're a mom or whether you're a coach or whether you're a youth pastor, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Sometimes especially as a man, the pride in us, we want to like hold it together.
It's all good. I'm good.
I'm good.
Yeah.
And I even say I'm good, you're good mindset. And it's like, hey, I'm good. Me and God are good. Like we're all good. And I'm like, man, deep down, I am not good,
Yeah.
And I had to find some places. And that's why I said, keeping your circle small has helped me build trust deep. In entrepreneurship and in marketing and all the things I used to do, I wanted this many relationships, like it's huge, wide, shallow relationships. And then I've learned that I wanted very few relationships and let those go deep. And that's how I've kept my circle real small. And it's funny when like whether drama comes up or the favorite most recently is when rumors get started. Usually they don't spread too much because we laugh about them. I always think that like things that are exposed from darkness into light, and the Bible teaches that things that are exposed in the light can't live. Mold does not live in sunlight. It only survives in dark places. And man, when you hear a rumor come up and you just expose it and like talk about it like it's not a rumor, like like whatever, man, it just goes away and we laugh about it. But if your circle's big, you have people that start to lose trust in you, and you have people that like start to like get worried, like what if 50% of that's true, and I've asked someone, I had someone call me about a week ago, like, man, I heard this said about you or whatever. Is any of that true? I said, let me ask you a question first. If it is true, then what? If all of it's true, what? And I want to know what their response was. And they didn't have a response. I said, you call me back when you have your response. Because if it is true, I want to know what your response is. Even if obviously you're calling me, so you're worried about it.
Yeah, you're worried about it.
You're pretty worried about it, And
I'm worried about you, but I'm just trying to get the intel.
I just want the intel so I can tell the person that told me about it what's true or not. And I was like, but then this is what the other people, so I got off that phone call. I called someone in my actual inner circle and I called them. I was like, hey, guess what? This was said. I didn't even tell them who said it. I was, guess this was said. And they started laughing. I'm like, that's crazy. We've heard that before,
Yeah.
And that's just what happens if you're not careful. And then I've kind of noticed this in some of my leaders in my life is, people want to talk about people they're jealous of or people that's doing something right. So as long as people are talking about me, making up lies, or don't like my attitude, because I am me. And then I even noticed this. Y'all probably dealt with this in business. Is when you're okay with who you are, the people who aren't okay with who they are, they're the ones that like you expose them.
Yeah.
You expose their
So
downfalls.
true.
You expose. I'm like, I had an ex-girlfriend ask me, well, aren't you worried about the skeletons in your closet being exposed? I'm like, man, my skeletons are on the front page of the paper. I've been arrested. I've been in the what do you call them? The little was arrested yesterday in all the pawn shops.
Yeah.
I have a friend who owns a pawn shop in another county. He sent me a picture of it. He goes, look what's hanging up in my pawn shop, And I told him, I was like, man, I'm okay with who I am, my failures and successes. And when you're okay with that and you're down to talk about it, I've learned it kind of exposes people who aren't okay with all their stuff.
Because you know who you are deep down and you know what your mission and your purpose is. So with that purpose and mission, you planted something that was something in your heart in Noonan called Hope Global.
Yeah, Hope Global Initiative. That's right.
And so explain to people what Hope Global does. Like,
Sure.
What's the mission statement? Where is it at? What do you do?
So Hope Global Initiative was founded 7 years ago with myself and my father. My dad would say he thought 30 years ago, well, now it's been like 35 years ago, he moved to Noonan God called him to Noonan for him to start a church or whatever. Fast forward, he realized it was for us to start Hope Global. It just took him about 30 years to get going. And I kind of encouraged him. I said, you also had to wait till I was ready.
True.
If he would have came to me 10 years ago, when I was making a ton of money and I owned 3 LLCs, working on 2 more, and I was doing marketing and I had side money and I had side chicks and I was traveling the world. 10 years ago, I would have laughed at him like, here, just send me the number. I'll donate some. What's your 501c3? I'll donate you some money, and he waited and was obedient. So we started 7 years ago, and it came out of me working for the state. So I was working for the state of Georgia, working to rehabilitate students who have been arrested in the different project areas or at-risk areas. And it was called the Department of Juvenile Justice. And I would basically take these kids out into the wilderness, like in Pine Mountain and Warm Springs. Basically, we had freedom to go to any state park in Georgia. We had to keep our clients in Georgia. And we'd take them out for like 4, 5, 6, 7 months.
Oh, wow.
So it's not like a weekend trip. One trip we had like what we call the worst case scenario, and we took these kids on a 10-day canoe trip down the Ocmulgee River all the way to Okefenokee Swamp. And these are kids coming from inner city, LaGrange, inner city Atlanta, South Georgia, in Savannah, Georgia, in the projects. They're all coming together. So different cultures, different gangs, different upbringings, right? And a different female was always the common denominator. A different female raised them, either a sister, a mom, auntie, grandma, somebody raised them. And they're going with this white guy into the woods. There's an old saying y'all seen on social media, like, this is some white people stuff.
Yeah.
And when I would tell them, we're going down the Okefenokee Swamp, down the Ocmulgee River, we're going to start in Macon, Georgia. And I went through a whole training of venomous snakes and alligators, and they thought I was pranking them, like all this kind of stuff. Day one, we saw like 12 alligators in Macon, Georgia, and they're like, oh my gosh, we're all going to die, all this stuff. And out of that, we saw a ton of results of rehabilitation. That kids commit crimes, not always because they're criminal, but because their home life, their desperation, boredom. I mean, we remember when we were all kids. Like, there's even stuff on social media now, like, keep scrolling, this is for the boys, and it'll be like a grown man throwing a rock off a bridge just to see how big the splash is going to be, right? Well, a lot of kids get in trouble because they'll throw a rock in a window or shoot a paintball gun at a dog or do things that should not be done. It's illegal. You can't do that. But really, we're going to incarcerate them, or we're going to be a positive role model in their life. And then I will just be really transparent. I started seeing that when I was working for the state, we were putting a Band-Aid on a situation that was bleeding out.
Yeah.
It was not working fast enough. So I decided the only way I could do what we're doing is be preventative. So we started the nonprofit Hope Global Initiative. One of our main mission statements is to help the next generation understand that their dreams can actually become a reality. It's terrible grammar because the word actually should not be in that sentence. And I've had board members, mentors, sisters, one of my 5 sisters in marketing, like, you got to take that word out of there. It's like, nope, not happening, because I had a student say, I don't think my dreams will actually ever happen. And we made our mission statement, and my dad and I stuck to that they can actually become a reality. And the first thing we help with a student, whether it's a small goal of, getting a grade from failing to passing so they can play Friday Night Lights on a football field, like, those are small goals, right? But we take a big dream and then we put a date on it. And I say a dream is something you do while you're sleeping or while you're sitting on the toilet. You daydream or you dream while you're asleep. My dreams and your dreams only happen when we put a date on it. Then it becomes a goal. So we even started doing little things. And it's heartbreaking because, like, you have this one kid who says, my dream and goal is to be in the NFL, right? And he's 17 years old and he's 5'5" and weighs like 90 pounds. Like,
brother, it ain't happening.
I don't think it's happening. So let's go with let's go with some goals and dreams that we could do now. And we write them down, all this stuff. And one of his like biggest dreams, and he was trying to explain it. And I was like, he has really bad writing and he still writes some of his letters backwards. And he's probably on, because after COVID, people just like, you made it to the next grade. They didn't really get to the next grade. They just pushed them. They call it placing them in the next grade. And his big goal and dream is to have a meal with his family. And I was like, well, explain what you mean. He was like, like a table, like you see on TV, like a table and everybody's sitting around and all the food's on the table. And he's describing this thing that I do every Sunday with my family. And this was like, of all the things he could think of, and that clicks again. I live in a third world country. This kid does not have a table in their apartment.
Wow.
They don't have a table.
So if the NFL won't do, I just want to have Sunday dinner with my family.
Because even that seems a little bit unreachable.
Yeah.
All right. But I have to be careful. I started doing some research and reading this book of helping people till it hurts them. Because look, I could come to your house in your basement and you could donate that old card table that you don't ever use, right? And I could ask you for a $50 gift card to go buy them some dinner and we'll just have it. They're like, we can make that goal happen tonight.
Yeah.
How dare me, the guy from out of town, take that work, that effort, that failure, that learning away from him because I can pull it off today. I'm glad no one did that for me. I'm glad no one just gave me money or built me a house. Like, we're not going to do that. So the first thing, and we're out working this morning when he gets off school, he's going to change the oil on my push mower and all this kind of stuff. And I'm going to let him rent my push mower because it's grass cutting season already. And we're going to let him start making money and he's going to buy the dinner and he's going to buy the table. And we're going to probably buy it at Goodwill.
You get a sense of accomplishment when he does it.
And I can't wait till he fails and doesn't put the right gas in there, right? And tears up the mower that he's going to have to buy. Because I've done it. I tore up a $20,000 trailer before because I was lazy and made a mistake and wrecked it. Like, he's going to have to fail some. So all I can do is teach him and he's going to have to learn. But I can't wait. And he's got a date on it. It's not really date. He put before school's up. So he's got like 2 more months, 60 days to be able to raise the money, buy a table, have dinner at his house, and this is a real goal he wants to do. Not to mention, he's 12 years old. So he's also working hard every day.
Like a kid like that, how did he even get in your program?
So we opened up a youth center in Noonan, Georgia, in an underserved community in the middle of the projects. Super Bowl Sunday 4 years ago, we opened it up. Super Bowl Sunday, we opened up, and literally we just turned it on, opened it up, 5,000 square foot, video games, big screen TVs everywhere. And when we were doing it, raising money and trying to open it, you have all these people that want to give away like their couch that's in their garage that the dogs sleep on. I'm like, no. You can go buy me a new $900 couch. You can go buy me a new 65-inch TV. I don't want the big ones that you don't like. I want it all done because I learned this in a big family with 8 kids. I know, and everybody else knows when you're wearing hand-me-downs. Everybody knows it, especially the person who's wearing it, right? And I did not want these kids who have always been handed down crap that nobody else wants. They're not walking into my youth center and going, nice, all the church people's leftover stuff. I wanted all new stuff. So when we opened it up, no one believed we would actually do it. No one believed it. And when you walk in there and there's lights and LEDs and big screen TVs everywhere and ping pong, it's just a youth center. That's all it is. Man, I could open that place 7 days a week, 20 hours a day. It is full. Last night, we had 20 guys there till 10 o'clock. And they just walk off the street because the other thing is inside's open till 6 or 7, but the basketball court is open 24 hours a day. And it's got lights and cameras that come on when it gets dark. So we had guys there all the way into the night. And if they were not there, they would be somewhere. They wouldn't be at home. They would not be at home. They would not be in the apartments. And I mean, we just had a big shooting, a homicide last weekend. And, it's a dangerous neighborhood, but it's also like people are just bored and have nothing to do. And they don't have money to go anywhere. They call downtown historic area, they call it uptown. A lot of our kids call it uptown. And it stays lit in Noonan, Georgia all year round. Lots of Christmas lights all year round. And so sometimes if they earn a trip or we'll go up to Carvella's in Noonan and they'll love going uptown, and it's been really cool partnering with different businesses and different things in town for kids who can earn what we call a trip, but sometimes it's just going uptown and that counts as a trip. So answer your question, this was just young men who saw the basketball court. It doesn't matter. I've learned this because we have youth centers in other countries as well that we've partnered with and we've opened up in different parts of the world. And it translates in every culture, every language. It doesn't matter. You show it with something recreational and you show up with some trust. Like you show up and you're like, there's no agenda. It translates. People just want to be a part of something like that. And we've done that everywhere we go. We show up either with depending on the culture. Here, it's basketball. We show up basketball and we put up new goals, new nets. When we go down to Nicaragua, we have 4 youth centers down there. We go with food and soccer ball, because those kids are so poor they don't eat. So we actually feed, we just hit a number of 75,000 in the year 2022. We fed 75,000 plates to the kids there in Nicaragua in this little town. And our big goal for 2023 is to start construction on a soccer facility. We'd like to have a soccer camp there versus like here is so much different. And that's where I had to learn and fail is here in Georgia, all our kids at our youth center, they have free breakfast, free lunch.
Yeah.
Because of Michelle Obama has the No Kid Left Behind. So they have subsidized breakfast and lunch. So I'm trying to create a summer program because mom is used to, or auntie or grandma, whoever's raising them, they're used to budgeting free breakfast, free lunch, right? Until spring break happens. Now there's no breakfast and lunch, right? And mom's still at work. And the summer comes. So those 3 months, that's a huge different thing. Like I tell people all the time when I'm raising funds or telling stories, I'm like, just imagine for the summer, y'all take a vacation every week and your budget for groceries triples for the whole summer. Well, a lot of people just wouldn't be able to pay their bills. And that's a legitimate thing with inflation right now is because not only did the price triple, but when summer comes, their grocery bill triples because the kids aren't getting free breakfast, free lunch, which is a whole scenario I'm trying to learn this year.
Yeah.
Another thing to learn. Yeah.
How do you get funded?
Well, right now, I'm the only fundraiser. We are funded by individuals and businesses. Businesses, I say that is businesses, churches, or individuals who own a business, if that makes sense. So like one of our monthly donors as an individual who's been donating to our nonprofit since day one for 7 years. But then 3 years ago, he started a business. So now his business is doing it because his business needed the tax write-off more than he did. So it's kind of a strategic thing on his end. And that kind of launched us to like go into some churches, and things like that. We don't have any funding source. So no grant funds us on a regular basis. And nobody donates, like none of our donors donate, $1,000 a month, what we call a big donor, right? Nobody donates to a point where I could say, oh, this business or this church funds us. It's strictly fundraising. And then we'll do campaigns. So we do Giving Tuesday, where we try to raise $10,000. We'll do end of year giving, where we try to raise $50,000. But what that does is we go to businesses and individuals who need their tax write-off, and that kind of funds the next year, if that makes sense. And then we'll do a golf tournament, but a lot of times that's exposure more than fundraising. We'll raise $3,000 or $4,000, but to do a big golf tournament, it takes $10,000, So it kind of will profit a little bit. This year will be the first year 8, where we will have passive income. So one of the 4 things that we do is affordable housing. And we pass inspection today, actually this morning, and hopefully we will have renters in April 1st into a duplex. So we'll have single African-American moms who were stranded from the tornado in Noonan 2 years ago. And it's taken us a while to build them, but hopefully it won't be a lot of money, but it'll be passive income for the first time. And we'll see how that goes. And if it works great, we'll try to do it again. And in 2024, do a big campaign and try to raise money and build another place because we're doing 2 things at once. One, we're doing affordable housing in a society and place in the world right now that word doesn't exist. The word affordable doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
So today, right before I came here, I was on the phone call doing an interview with this single mom who wants to rent, and she was like stressed out about like, well, this is a brand new house, and we know the going rent's $1,700 a month. I was like, well, what are you paying right now? And she told me the number, and it was under $1,000. I was like, well, we're at a place for the first year we're going to cut your rent in half from what you're paying. So it's very subsidized. We don't call it affordable because that depends on how much money you make.
Yeah.
But this is a single mom. Another lady is 65 years old. She doesn't have a job. She just got her SSI or early Social Security. So she has no income. So hers will be subsidized. And the way we're able to do this is because by the time we get our final inspection, which will be Monday, we hope to have the whole place paid off. Does that make sense? So we'll have 2 rentable apartments that are completely paid off. So whatever subsidized rent they can afford, it's passive income. So if it works, again, keyword, if it works, we hope to duplicate that again in 2024.
How many people do you have on staff?
We just hit the benchmark of 4, which means I got to get workman's comp. I learned that in my grant writing and all this stuff. It's like, if you have more than 3 employees, you got to have workman's comp. So that'll be another, what I call another bill I got to raise money for, because God blessed us and we have grown. We have myself as the executive director. We have another guy who basically is the program director and helps with the youth center. And then I have a full-time guy who we call him all the time, because what is full-time and what is part-time? They're salary. In nonprofit world, you go 2 directions. You're either a full-time salary person, so you work 80 hours a week and get paid for half of that, or you're a 1099 contractor, which is really a direction that's easier for the nonprofit, because a contractor, I don't have to pay their taxes or their workman's comp, they're just contractors. But for me, right now in our board and where we're at, we're able to really take care of these young people that are in their 20s who are working for us. And if we're going to expand, we'll just have to raise more money. And we always say that we have the biggest giver and the biggest donator, and we have access to God's bank account. So whatever's going to come next, God's going to have to figure it out. I get to steward it. God put me in charge to steward it. But if he wants it to happen, he's going to have to figure that out, and that's, we're learning. People in COVID lost a lot of money and a lot of things happened. We actually raised more money during COVID because a lot of people were generous. And we hit a benchmark where it's like, okay, I can pretty much go full-time now. And so we have 2 full-time guys and 2 part-time people. And maybe next year we'll see what that looks like. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when guys come in, you're just wanting to give them some hope. You're just trying to say,
right.
All right, let me know, because what we were talking about it earlier today is like, you can be anything you want. You follow your dreams, follow your heart, and then all of a sudden life happens and it's like, don't get your hopes up too much, right? That's
Man, for all the listeners, I'm going to get in trouble with this. For all the listeners that are listening to this podcast episode today, stop listening to people who tell you don't get your hopes up. And what's hard about that is it's going to be the one person that you look up to the most. For me, it was my coach, it was my mom, it was my girlfriend at the time. My dad said it. Like, your husband, your wife might say it. Someone wants to encourage you, and they pat you on the leg and say, now don't get your hopes up. Versus my grandma, she was built different. She was built different. She raised us different. My grandmother hit me on the back and say, you need to get your hopes up. It don't have to be like everybody else. And that was ingrained in my head. And man, I can't tell you how annoying, depressing, and it's just frustrating how many people in our world today will actually tell a young person, don't get your hopes up. Something happens, when you're a kid, everyone's telling you that you can be a firefighter and an astronaut and the NFL and all this kind of stuff, and you get your driver's license and they want you to be careful. And they want you to start taking practice ACTs and don't get your hopes up and, be safe and do this and all these things. And I'm like, man, that is the opposite so I joke with my parents all the time. I'm like, man, you lied to me for the first 10 years, and I tell people, be careful the games you play with your kids, I met this one kid recently who was actually traumatized and mortified, 9 years old, because he found out that Santa Claus was not real. He found out that his parents, grandparents, friends, auntie, uncle, everyone has been lying to him his whole life. And he's having an identity crisis. He doesn't even want to ask about all the other ones. Now, that's my own opinion, but my house, Santa Claus, Tooth Fairy, all this stuff, they go right along with Cinderella, Pinocchio, they just go around with it. It's fun. You can play with kids and it's fun.
Hey, I'm 40 years old and I've always been told, you don't believe, you don't receive.
Right. But the thing is think about anybody who has kids playing t-ball, anybody who has kids, playing some sport. My house growing up, we didn't get last place trophies. Like my dad would not let us bring things into the house just because we participated. My dad growing up is like, well, that's not my job and I didn't do that. And he goes, no, you live in this house. It is your job. So there's 5 girls and 3 boys. That didn't mean like boys cut grass and girls do the clothes. No, we live in this house. It's a team effort. And the results that we get from being a team are the results we get to deal with. And I see it's such a frustrating thing. It's so demasculating as an adult man and even as a kid when a coach or a dad will say something like, come on now, don't hit like a girl. You're running like a girl. It's so demasculating. And I'm sitting there going, what are you talking about? My 5 sisters? They will kill all your boys. Like my sisters were basketball players, softball players. Like if I wish I could hit like one of my sisters, I wish I could throw a football like one of my sisters, but it's so demasculating. And then when you have the culture that we have now, it's like, you don't even know what the word masculine means. And I forget, I think it's so dangerous for us to be careful to define what a man is when I think a man and a woman is so truthful in what it is. And I'm not even talking about sexually, but like, what does it mean to be a man? And that's the thing I'm fighting the most in our youth center is like, they've never been taught, like some of my kids have never been taught the struggle of having to apologize to somebody. I mean, I have a employee that I had to have the conversation with today. He goes, well, I didn't do anything that owes them an apology. I said, I know that, but that person came to me and thinks you're mad at them.
Yeah.
So even though you didn't mean to hurt them, you hurt them and you owe them an apology. And before you see them again face to face and it's awkward, you need to clear the air. You need to apologize. Because sometimes apologies or forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for us.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest culture shock that I'm dealing with right now is growing up in a solid family with my dad in the house and my mom, who's my superhero, and my grandmother and my great-grandmother. Crazy story. My family's a big family. My mom's in her 60s and is a great-grandmother already. So at one time, we had my great-grandmother, my grandmother who was in her 90s, my mom, my oldest sister who's in her 40s, my niece who's in her 20s who has 2 kids. So you're talking about 6 generations alive and healthy.
Yeah.
You go to talk to one of my neighbors who I ask about her mom, and she can give me a few memories. And I was like, well, what about your kids? Well, my kids have passed away. I outlived them. Well, what about your grandmother? I don't know where she was from. She's it. She can't remember her grandmother, and she has no generations below her. That's it. That's the difference sometimes in impoverished culture and not impoverished culture. That's the difference in white culture or black culture. I'm learning like our history in the world is all written down. A lot of people's history is all oral. So when that person dies, history's over. No more, no more story. So that's another big thing I'm trying to learn for this year is to figure out how to document a lot that's going on because I think it is duplicatable what we're doing, but I also want to be careful because I always tell people this is my calling and my passion. And that word passion is not always a good thing. John Mark Comer, he says that passion is how much suffering can you endure? And a lot of times people are like, let's be passionate. I'm like, are you sure? Because with compassion comes suffering.
That's exactly right. I heard Tim Tebow say that. He said, when you hear the word passion, people are like excited and fired up. He's like, no, passion goes back. Right.
I can be excited with a Bang energy drink.
Yeah.
Like I could be excited. Someone the other day saw me drinking coffee for the first time. And they were like, I didn't know you drink coffee. I was like, I don't really like coffee. I like the way it makes me feel, and you can be excited and do a lot of stuff. But passion means you've been through hell and back.
Yep.
If you have passion, you have been through hell and back, which is also why, like, I've always learned, Les Brown's one of my favorite of saying, like, you only quit. You only fail if you quit. Like, I'm not going to fail. I just learned how not to do something.
That's right. Exactly.
It's been crazy.
So what's next for you guys? You guys plan on going to other cities? I know you're in other countries now.
I'm going to retire at age 34 and a half. No, I'm just kidding. I always thought when I was making a lot of money that I was going to, what's that, some book about working for 4 hours a week or something like that. It's a crock. It sold a lot of books, but nobody who's changing the world are really helping people wants to just quit. One of my mentors is 88 years old. And Dr. Jack, he's incredible because he can keep up with me. He'll wake up early. He'll go out to the farm. He'll sit with kids. He does a lot for us. And he has retired twice as a doctor. Once private practice, and then second working for the state. And he says when you outlive everybody, you just keep working, and for us is to figure out what we do well, which I think we do 4 things really well. What we do well and do it better. Because I think where we're at right now as an organization, we're doing things pretty decent, but we're not doing anything excellent. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. I mean, you talk about Chick-fil-A. We read Truett Cathy's book, and the book was talking about, how they were collaborating. They were trying to really expand Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Like, how do we grow? And Mr. Truett, the old man, just stopped them all.
Yeah.
He said, if we get better, we won't have to worry about the growth.
Right.
If we get better. And that's when they implemented My Pleasure. That's when they implemented the standalone stores.
Yeah.
With the
standalone store and second mile service.
Yeah. With the yes, like, coming, filling up your drinks and everything. They got better. They exploded, and it's the same thing in our lives. It's like, when I'm having a pity party, I got to look at myself and take full ownership of where I'm at, where I'm thinking, what my situation is, because it's easy to point, right?
Yeah.
It's so easy to. I could come up with so many excuses that are true, right?
Yep.
That are true. But when you take full ownership, and I think, what you guys are doing as far as, especially men, I mean, I know you got girls there as well, but I do believe that it's, origin for man to lead.
Right.
For a man to lead. I do believe that. I think a man should lead his household.
Yeah.
I think that's his number one priority is to lead his household.
Yeah.
He needs to lead his wife, and obviously his kids. But yeah, that's really good. It's just, you getting better yourself, everything else will take care of itself.
Right. And I would say, that's been hard. I could name from memory about 75 kids. We have a ton. We have 300 kids in the neighborhood, but 75 consistent all the time. And out of the 75, I personally know about 3 dads. 3 dads out of 75 kids. And I did not realize, people talk about pandemics. It's been going on for a while.
Absolutely.
And this pandemic of men not leading, I've read some research recently of how cities, governments, plan for construction of jails, for prisons. And prison construction, they get it 2 data points. How many men are in the home currently, and the reading level of a 4th grader. That if someone can not read past 4th grade reading level, mixed with a father's not in the home, that's how they do a 10-year construction plan.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. So I told someone, I was like, we're getting rid of the computers. I told someone this, like, hey, what are you going to do? I said, we're building some bookshelves. All 75 of my kids are freaking going to read.
Yeah.
And we started partnering with juvenile court. And I started asking, why are these young kids having to go to juvenile court at 13 years old, 12 years old, so they don't have an advocate? All right. I told the judge, I need you to meet me. And I'll just say this, and he and I are friends now. But I came in and I said, well, my goal is to keep 100 kids from coming to your courtroom. And I had these people and started laughing. And I closed my freaking laptop and I said, I think I'm in the wrong table. I'm sorry. You don't impress me. But if you don't think, and he said, Mr. Ayers, hold on, calm down. Don't get offended. Let me explain something to you. We don't try to stop things and prevent things. We try to slow them down. I said, so what do you mean? He said, I saw 300 juveniles last year. And he goes, let me just tell you this. If what you're saying actually happens, he used my trigger word. He goes, if it actually happens, he said juvenile courts in New York, Chicago, L.A., Memphis, Tennessee are going to want to know what we're doing. He goes, because nowhere in the country does it go backwards. We just try to slow it down and manage it. He goes, so if our numbers go from 300, preventing 100 next year, and if you're telling me through community service, outdoor therapy, and better environments, safe environments, you're telling me those numbers are going to go down? He goes, you better be knowing, you better have a way to duplicate it. I was like, all right.
You're being proactive and not reactive.
Right. And it was shocking because I thought like helping 100 kids, I didn't think that was going to be like astronomical. But it was a number big enough that made the juvenile court plus Department of Juvenile Justice, plus all their assistants. It was a conference table full of people. They all started laughing when I said the number. Because what's funny is I asked them for a number first. And the judge was like, well, give me your number. What's your number? How many kids you want to help? Well, it's funny because like I already have 50 in my folder. Like we already have 50 folders. We're ready to buy more folders. Like we're already helping 50 kids. So to me, like we'll hit 100 by the end of this year. So to me, it's like the more people, the more money we can raise, the more we can help.
I can totally see where that group of people, they're almost numb to their process. They're numb to seeing it, and they see a young kid that's like all excited, like, okay, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he thinks he's really going to make a difference.
Well, and I learned the numbers because in our town, just in our county, we have 700 nonprofits. And 700 nonprofits, these are real numbers, 700 registered nonprofits, nobody's doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Out of those 700 nonprofits in our county, 150 of them are churches. And I won't go down there. That's for episode another day. But 150 churches in our county, and 4 of them are helping us do what we do.
Yeah.
So that's another whole epidemic of where people, I was willing to put money where my mouth is. And I think now that I've done it 7 years, there's a whole thing, and y'all have heard this in business, that 10 years is the test of time. If next year I start planning our 10-year anniversary, I think people will start to believe me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think a few people have believed me. I feel like guys like y'all have believed in me, right? And in our town, and now that we've also done it in different places of the world, it's kind of proof in the pudding. And when we start, I told a guy the other day, I was like, hey, I want you to speak at my 10-year anniversary. We're going to start planning it this summer because that's not for 2 more years. But I'm like, hey, I tell the kids all the time, have a vision board, start planning ahead. So this summer, we're going to start planning our 10-year anniversary because we actually believe we'll be there. And y'all know how fast 2 years will go by.
That's right.
Yeah.
Quickly. Very quickly.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to, help you guys out or check you out online and everything, how would they find you guys?
Yeah. So we're, Hope Global Initiative is the legal thing, is our legal name. We found out that people can't spell the word initiative. So our website's really easy. It's just Hope Global Noonan. If you Google those 3 words, we're the first 10 things that come up because we've been in the paper and we did a lot of tornado relief from Troup County, Meriwether County, all the way to Coweta County. We did a lot with the foundation and the Alan Jackson concert and things like that. So really easy to find. I always tell people I'm the most available person you'll ever meet. This is what I mean by that. I'm a very productive person, and I try to use every hour of the day I can. But this is what I've learned. You tell people, like my cell phone number is on every website, every Instagram, every newspaper article, and people think I'm crazy. But this is what I know. People don't call you. You know that family member that's like, you ever come back in town, stop by? I tell people, I've told you that at your house. Be careful when you say that. Yeah. I'll show up on the dock. Yeah. Like people all the time will say that. I put my number out on every Instagram, Facebook ad. It doesn't ring because people see that and they're like, man, that's crazy. I can't believe it. It doesn't, people don't want to be a part as much as they think they do.
That's right.
So I tell people I will be available. I will eat. I will let you invite me over and feed me. I'm still a single bachelor. Like I eat tuna fish and ramen noodles still, So it's easy to be in touch, but I will say this. I turn down churches and individual, not only their time, I also turn down their money. And what I say that for any listener is you need to be willing to be a part of the 4 things we do. And if we don't do this, it's helping students, it's mentoring kids, it's doing affordable housing. So whether that's volunteering your hours, your money, your efforts, your skill set, in-kind donations. I mean, I had one guy who donated literally all the lumber because he had it from building his house. He had all the lumber that we needed to build the back porches of our duplex. That was a huge, literally $15,000 in-kind donation. And he was going to throw it away, but he got a $15,000 donation from it. And then the other is our outdoor therapy, which we have a farm. That's a whole nother conversation down in Milledgeville where we take these trips and there and we have hunting and fishing, and it's 230 acres that God's literally let us use. And so I tell people, if you want to be a part of those 4 things, I'm all for it. And then of course, then there's the side of being hands-on, which is I tell people you're going to have to be called.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to open your heart, you're going to have to go through me first. Because that's the one thing that I will not allow to happen is someone who thinks they want to be a part of something and then a kid opens their heart and then they never see this person again.
Yeah.
I want people to be consistent in this person's life, and we have different levels of that. Like we have one mentor, he's a business mentor to this young senior in high school, and he meets with them once a month on FaceTime. another time a month, he just shoots him a text or something. It's a very low commitment, right? But I still ask this business owner, hey, if you're going to commit to, giving this kid some mentorship, I'm asking you to sponsor him at $100 a month so he actually sees some belief in it, so I can help him do certain things and help him get to a place. And we're trying to get him, and we're going to do a signing when he graduates high school, because we're trying to get him a job like at a Niagara Water or Yamaha or a Kia, somewhere that's just high school education with a GED, but he can start making $20 an hour as soon as he graduates. That kind of stuff. Because everybody wants to do the football signing where they put on the hat and the cameras are there, or we're going to do workplace signing, and have a huge party at our youth center. So anybody that's going to make a job, they already have a job offer, we're asking the president of the companies to come, or like sales manager.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
It's huge.
We were talking about this before the podcast. Times are changing.
They are.
It was our world coming up. Go to school, get an education. Right. Mm-hmm. You got to have that piece of paper.
Yeah.
My oldest has a master's from the University of Georgia.
Yeah.
I'm glad she got it. She had a great time. She's got lifelong friendships. Right. But with my other ones coming up, 16, 13, and 10, I'm not pushing school.
And is the 10-year-old a boy?
And twins, boy and a girl.
Boy and a girl.
And so my wife would argue with me. She would not say what I'm saying right now. But school is not what it was. Mm-hmm. If they want to, I got two of them that play baseball. It'd be awesome. They go play college baseball, learn things, through athletics. But I would rather give them the money and start a business and fall on their face.
Yeah.
They'll learn more doing that than going and being, X amount in debt from school or I think it's just not teaching. It's more of a brainwashing session. And I probably need to shut up. but it is. I just really feel like it's not what it used to be.
Yeah.
And those salaries aren't taped to those degrees anymore.
No.
No. I mean, there's people with masters that can't make over 45, 50 grand a year. They're just not out there.
No.
And
I tell people all the time, like I have a young guy who works for me. I tell people all the time, go get a job, but start branding yourself and grow a business while someone else is paying you.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like don't do your job. Like someone's paying you, do what you're getting paid to do. But don't go do what you're not getting paid to do. So he's working with me and I'm like, dude, but you have Wednesdays and Fridays off. Like you need to go brand yourself, make that extra money. Like, and he's so excited because he's like, he just paid off his first car.
Yeah.
And he's got $20,000 in savings because he wants to buy another house. But he's been living in his first house for over a year. So now that first house can become a rental property.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, you want to hurry up? Like you're 23 years old. But I don't know why people always think the new way times are changing. It's not like the old way when I was in my 20s is here's all the debt, take your 20s and 30s to pay off your debt.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, you can live in no debt right now. And like, this is another whole soapbox, but like use someone else's money.
Yeah.
If you get approved, let a bank loan you some money to go build that house or buy that house, And when you start doing that, like I am helping a lot of people, but then there's sometimes people just gonna have to spend some time unlearning what their mama taught them.
Oh yeah.
They're just gonna have to, because I can't help people who aren't willing to help themselves.
Yeah. And I think that's even for us.
Yeah.
We still have to fight the unlearning process over and over because, Apostle Paul talks about it's the daily renewing of your mind
every
single day. Right now, there's experience, there's things that you that you've been sown into, but there's a lot of unlearning you got to do. You have to constantly be growing, constantly be learning because the world's changing. I was telling you this. I read an article. They're talking about electricians within the next 5 to 8 years making $250,000 a year.
Right.
Because
electricians and plumbers.
Yes.
I have 3 friends that were working with companies. One was a firefighter, one was a real estate agent. Now they have some of the largest plumbing and electric companies in our county.
Because those jobs, you'll always need those jobs.
Right.
I mean, look around, lights, bathroom, plumbing. It's always
got a friend who's got a master's from Georgia Tech. He owns I won't say the name, he owns a local funeral home.
Yeah.
He says, I'm never going out of business.
Yes.
And his wife quit her job.
Yeah.
They're raising the kids. So he's a business owner with a stay-at-home wife, raising their kids, homeschooling their kids. He's making a lot more money than he would have ever made at that company he was driving all the way to Atlanta for.
Yeah.
And he's got a degree from Georgia Tech.
Yep.
And he's living debt-free now. And it's just crazy. He's like, I think I'm going to get in the new industry. He went to embalming school and the whole legal stuff. Now he owns a funeral home.
Yeah.
It's just nuts.
Yeah.
It's a whole nother world we live in.
I'll tell you, we could definitely need to get an episode 2, 3, 4 volume of this. I'll tell you what I learned is unlearn what you've been told.
Yeah, unlearn it.
And don't say, I hope it works out. Go make it happen.
Make it happen. And it's my belief that if you get your hopes up, your best days are ahead.
Yeah.
If you get your hopes up, if you have a dream, put a date on it. Otherwise, it's going to stay a dream.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. Thanks for stopping by, man.
Man, thank y'all so much. This is awesome. Love the Burns.
Yeah, man. It's
All right.
good.